computer. So, hi, this is group 5305, and we are going to do our collaborative discussion, communicating your ideas.
Mhm.
Okay. So these readings for me got me thinking a lot about, I guess, the spirit of an innovative educator and how, I guess, important it is to find what's available to you. And me not being a teacher, um, throughout this group that we've had, I can see each one of y'all being innovative educators because as teachers, y'all have really had to think fast on your feet, especially during COVID. So, you know, props to you all. Y'all are amazing. I think for me in my job, since working with tutors and trying to encourage them to work with students and in different ways, we've had to be creative in having the tutors get to know their students or their 2Ds, we call them 2Ds, so that they can
Mhm.
engage with them. Because a lot of times, students of all ages hate to ask for help.
Mm.
And they have this idea that I'm in college and I should know what I'm doing, even though the whole idea of being in college is to learn.
Mm.
So, and you don't know those things. That's why you're there.
Right.
So we really, would have to remind the tutors about that, especially since a lot of tutors tend to be um, students that, not that everything came easy to them, but they felt very comfortable in learning. And they tended to be, I guess, like a type A person. But
Mm.
one thing I always did in hiring tutors is I always tried to look for students that could tutor, but who also were empathetic and would take that time and not get frustrated with the students because they would be tutoring students of all different levels. Um, an example would be, and I know I've mentioned this so many times to y'all, that Del Mar College, where I work at, we are a blue collar town, and a lot of our students are non-traditional, meaning they are of maybe even of older ages, and they're finally in their lives taking the time to go to college. But there have been many times where tutors would come to me after a session and they just realized that the person they were tutoring did not know how to read or did not know their multiplications.
That's a lot.
That is, and the look on their face was like got hit, like they got hit by a bus. They were almost sometimes in tears, and they were wondering how the system, I guess, let them progress in life. And that was really hard for them to understand. But one of the things I kind of had to really, that I do as their coordinator, is try to remind them why they are there. They're there for the student. They're there to try to help the student at their level and to, you know, just to breathe and to remember that student is somebody who's there, who's extremely vulnerable and has come to them for help. And so they, I guess, a lot of times the tutors were the innovative educator because we really had to train them and focus on that, to focus on the student, what the student was needing,
Right.
and that there was no shame. There was no, they were there to be with them at that student's level and to constantly communicate to the student to come back, that you only, get better at this if you continue coming. So it was a lot for the tutor sometimes, but the really good tutors are the ones that like took it and said, okay, I'm gonna do this. I can do this. And a lot of times their students, their tuties would come back and be like, I want to work with Justin. I want to work with, this person because they felt so comfortable with them. So, yeah, as far as using technology and helping the students, a lot of times it was maybe
You said
doing
what
a,
about technology?
say again, babe. Oh, I'm sorry. Say again,
I
Marie.
didn't hear you. What did you say about
About
technology?
technology. So a lot of times the tutors, we didn't always use technology during the tutoring sessions because they were one-on-one, but the tutors would sometimes give them assessments that were on the computer to so that the student can see their growth, to see
Mhm.
where they were at. Yeah. So that is, I guess, my part this morning on our lesson.
Um, so in that article about are you an innovative educator? Here's how to find out. They gave different scenarios of students in classrooms, and maybe they were given projects, and oftentimes they get projects, they make presentations with those projects, or they might act out something and turn it in for a grade. And they said that it was not innovative in that method, right? Innovation kind of steps in when you're able to connect it to the community, right? It's not only making the presentations and turning them in because that's just for the environment and with that we're within. But when we spread it, when we take it out of just our own comfortable space, like they were like they take a presentation that they make and they share it on Facebook. Because now when you're sharing it, you're taking that knowledge and the information
Right.
and you're spreading it throughout the community. And that is when the innovative part shows up, right? And I was like, I guess then if that's the case, then no, I'm not an innovative
Same.
educator
Yeah.
if that's what we're saying that the definition is. However, though, but it is an area to work on now that I'm realizing like, okay, that's what innovation looks like. Yeah, in that video, I don't know if you guys watched it with they called it BS. Maybe that's why it stood out to me. Behavior science video.
No.
And there were people that were smoking cigarettes and they were trying to get them to change. And they would have kids walk up to them and be like, hey, you should quit smoking. It's bad for you. You know what it do to your lungs. And the people would push the kids away and not be open to hearing what they had to say. And then they were like, that's because when you're trying to get people to change, you can't hit them with the facts. You can't hit them with those type of things that they already know. That's not how you're going to change them. So they sent the little kids back. And when they went back, the kids had their own cigarette and they started asking the grown men out on the streets that were smoking, hey, give me a lighter. They was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, lighter? Do you know what this does to you? It does this, it messes up this. You're not gonna have no energy. You know what I'm saying? Over time, you're gonna look like this. And it was like, that's what innovation looks like when I'm able to take it out of
Off the
myself and put
paper.
that
Yeah.
power exactly back into that person, and it helps them come up with their value systems. It helps them realize their ownerships, their power, what the issue really is. For example, if you have a high school student and they not doing no homework, you shouldn't be over there, oh, where your homework at, why you ain't did this work, this was due, you gonna get a zero. Instead, innovation is or innovation, but also to help them change into that, the new question is what can you do better about what gets in the way of you turning in your homework,
Mhm.
right? And then that allows them to start thinking on their own, like, man, I maybe need to start 5 minutes earlier, or maybe I'm working too late at night, and that's why I'm not getting it. That's why I'm not getting it done. It takes it from us and puts it on them because when it comes from yourself, that's how you get people to change. Them taking that realization, you not hitting them with the facts that they already know, but you providing those thought-provoking questions that help them own who they are and their values. Because at the end of the day, they all want to pass, they all want to do good, but we have to help them tap into it by asking those leading questions. I'm not gonna preach on here today. I promised I wasn't. I ain't gonna do it. Nope, nope.
But you know what,
Um,
Marie? I mean, you're not preaching. You're right in the moment. That is,
yeah, it was,
yeah.
it was like a light bulb. Even like what you said about the tutoring. It was like, not about can I help you, but are they, oh, you should come to tutoring more often. Are you failing? You're not doing this, you're not doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
what can make tutoring easier for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How can you come on time? Why
Yeah.
did you start tutorials? Like, how can I better assist you? Giving those questions to them allow them to take the ownership of it and in return come up with their own solution that's part of their value that
Mm-hmm.
helps them lead to change. Because
Yeah.
me beating you over the head with it is not gonna happen. You know you need tutorial. You see your
Yeah.
grades, you're
Mm-hmm.
failing, you're doing
Mhm.
this, you're doing that. You already
That's
know that.
right.
Like those people that were smoking those cigarettes, they knew they was bad, but when the quick kids started asking them for it, that's when they were able to tap into their value system, who they are at heart, and recognize this is how I should be doing it. But
Right.
until I'm asked the right questions, I can't even do a deep dive. And so
Right.
then because I can't do a deep dive, because I'm being approached the way that I'm approached, and I can't change. But I think in general, everybody want to change, but we just don't know the steps that it takes. And so in the BS, the behavior science video,
Yeah.
they were like, that's why we hit them with the kids and the puppies, because
Yeah.
those things are cuter and nice, and that could get the approach for people to listen. I guess, part of
Yeah.
the experiment out on the street. So
Yeah. That
Mm-hmm.
definitely pulls on people's heartstrings.
yes, and that's what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting.
Very, very.
I totally agree with y'all. But Melissa, I wanted to ask you, do you feel personally like you are an innovative educator or not?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't have
Mm,
thought of it before,
Hmm.
but something Marie just said, that we have to encourage the students, encourage the tutors one way and then the students the other.
Hmm.
We have to encourage the students to keep coming back. And one of the things, and as their coordinator, as the person who, hires them, and I feel like a coach a lot of times because I have to like
Hmm.
sometimes build them up to go out
yep,
there.
yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
a lot of times I have to remind the tutor that not only do they have to think of the student and where they're at, but how much courage it took for that student to get there, to
Yeah.
get into the building, to ask for help. And because there's so
Hmm.
much vulnerability in asking for help. And some of these folks that have come in who are, like I said, non-traditional students, we're talking about maybe, 40, close to 50-year-olds, and some of them learning how to read.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have made it through life not knowing, maybe knowing very basic things, but
Right. Hmm.
reading enough with the with enough of the capacity in order to pass their classes, you know? So can you imagine how much courage it takes to get yourself enrolled and say, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And then to get yourself into the tutoring center and saying, I need help. I
Right.
want to do this. So going back to the innovative educator, a lot of times again, letting the tutor know, this is what, not all students are going to look like you. And a
Right.
lot of these students are going to have, they're going to be, different ages, they're going to have different life stories. So you're going to have to use what you know about people to communicate with them. So yes, I
Mm.
definitely think so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Saria?
Um, no. When I looked at
Uh-huh.
when I looked at the side by side, like I was saying earlier, when I looked at the side by side
Hmm.
and I looked at the non-innovative side, I was like, that's pretty good. The
Mm.
kids did this project and they created this thing. But
Hmm.
then I looked at the other side and I was like, oh, that's how they use it within the community. That's how they get the word out. That's how they
Hmm.
spread the word. That's how they innovate and make things better, not only for themselves, but for everybody around them. And then
Mm-hmm.
I pulled this quote. We must provide environments where students can engage in innovative, real-world experiences they find meaningful. When you do that, you move forward on being an innovative educator. I've been teaching math. I taught science. I taught social studies. All great subjects. All have good project potential. But what is it when you get home and that's it for the learning? It's good for kids to be able to go home to their parents or whomever, whoever at the house, and have that conversation about, this is what we did in math today. This is how I can show you. Sometimes kids will kind of,
Yeah, that's
you know,
true.
kind of explain things to their parents, especially
Mm-hmm.
when they had a good
And
time at
that's it.
school.
That's when we start to lead into that.
Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what struck me, because I made it to the dinner table a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? I ain't
Yeah.
bragging. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But that's what you want. Oh, Miss Nixon, when y'all did this and da 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 da. Or when you
Mm-hmm.
have parents who
Mm-hmm.
want to come to school and sit in the classroom with their students because they've said something, and they just kind of want to see what's going on and how this teacher acts in class. I forgot about that part of education. That was within my
Mm-hmm.
first couple of years, and then I
Yeah.
lost it. I was like, y'all want me to do 50 things a day. You give me 20 minutes to do it, and then you got to eat lunch and go to the restroom. You don't have time for nothing else.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So I want to get back to that, because there was certainly a spark when I first started teaching. I don't want to say I'm jaded now, but maybe a little bit, so I
Mm.
need to kind of get back to the purpose, because it is to inspire beyond the classroom. You know
That's
what I'm
it.
saying?
Yes.
It is to
Yes.
inspire beyond the classroom.
So
So
true. Good
yeah.
Lord.
I'm going to do
Um,
this because I saw you do it the other day, Saria, so I'm going to do that for you.
oh,
You
Tab.
know, you know what? I was thinking about this earlier when I was reading through this, and I was saying, you know what? Maybe I have not been innovative when it comes to assignments, but I have been innovative when it's come to behavior, because I started in middle school, and a lot of times it was behavior that was, I think, the most challenging.
That's a good one.
And I took
Mhm.
some crazy professional development that worked.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and give them some props today. It worked. Wherever you at, it worked. It worked. If it get back to you, it worked.
Yeah.
And what was happening, if kids were having to be put out of the room for whatever the case is, I would put them out of the room. Okay. And I would go out there, and what I would do is shock them, right? I wouldn't
Mhm.
ask them, what did you do in the classroom? Why did you do that? Because those are those same questions that do not cause for a student's behavior to change. What
Right.
I ended up doing was saying, well, how can I help you more? What
Mhm.
am I doing in the classroom that is affecting you in such a way? Right? And they will stand there like they can't even speak, flabbergasted, because they're expecting the notion of what they did being hounded with the information, with the facts, and that does not cause change. What
Right.
causes change is those questions that question who you are at the core value, that can spark the change that you really want to do. And it was like when
Mhm.
I would start doing that, it's like, well, what could I have done better? And they like, what? They knew they acted a fool in this
Yeah.
classroom.
Right.
They was expecting me to hit them with something else, but I hit them with the, hey, how could I have done something better? What can I do to better assist you in the classroom that does not cause this behavior?
Yeah. Yeah. They was probably bracing themselves for the argument. Like, let me get ready.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
That does not cause change. You're gonna get
Yeah.
that behavior every single time. Just like
Yes.
what they were saying in that video. You're gonna get that people to keep smoking those cigarettes. You're gonna
Right.
get that student to still not come to tutorials. You still gonna get that person who not gonna turn in their homework
Right.
because of the way that we as educators, or we in the education system, whatever role we play, we're hitting them in the wrong way, in the wrong manner. Our verbiage, our language is
Mhm.
not innovative. And more when we're conscious of it, we can start to spark that change. We can, like you said, realizing I was doing it in the beginning in some way and somehow, but sometimes, I just got to be reminded of my why, beginning with the end in mind.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Let me
Wow,
get my snaps
Marie.
on. Let me
Yes,
get my
yes.
snaps on.
Snaps from Marie. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Marie, when you would ask them, what can I do? What what were like the looks on their face? Were they like,
Yeah, they didn't know what to say because they were expecting to be chastised,
Yeah.
disciplined, or fought with words. And so, and even sometimes if students didn't even know, I would go back in my room. I said, you know what? I'm gonna give you a little time to think. I go back in my room, back doing my thing, come back out.
mm-hmm,
And they by then have come up with whatever the response is. And they'll start taking ownership. Oh, you
mm-hmm,
know what? It was me. I did this, I did that. They'll free me up quick because
Yeah.
I know it wasn't me in the first place. But
mm-hmm,
I'll start with me. They'll be like, "Oh, it
Right.
wasn't nothing that you did."
Mhm.
Have y'all ever felt like when you were being innovative, though, your admin wasn't receptive?
mm.
Have y'all
Mm.
had that? So, what I mean by that, can y'all hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Okay.
can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like being a theater teacher, like you all said, like I have to come up with creative lessons. Like that's a part of our curriculum, like figuring out creative ways for them to learn the concepts. But it's like when admin comes in to either observe or, walk through or something like that, it's like because they are expecting for your classroom environment to look a certain way, they don't necessarily give you all of the, I'm going to say points just because that's the only word I can think of right now. But you
Yeah.
know how when you get your
I know what
evaluations
you're
and
talking
stuff
about.
like that,
Mhm.
it's like they don't give you all of the kudos that you would get, let's say if I was in a fine art school, and they're seeing everything that I'm doing. Like the kids are actively engaged. The kids are enjoying the lesson. Um, it's student centered, it's not teacher centered and all of those things. And it's an innovative lesson. It's something that I took from them maybe just reading a play versus them creating roles, acting it out. Like in my class, I make them, they have to act it out. They have to put the whole play together. So they're coming up with the set, they're coming up with the costumes, they're coming up with all those things. However, because admin aren't necessarily in tune with what you have going on, if it doesn't look like what they expect it to look like,
Mm,
they kind of you don't get the appropriate consideration, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
it does.
That's unfortunate because you do want somebody if you are um if you want to receive full credit, I'm gonna say it like that. You do want to be in the presence of someone who knows what you're doing, who knows what's going on. You can't be a math expert and go into fine arts and say, "Are they supposed to be sewing?" Like you just need to know
Right.
what's going on. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So you want
Right.
somebody in there who has that background. I That's a good question.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
see, our struggle is like, luckily enough for me, when I first got to Fort Bend, my appraiser was a former music teacher.
okay.
So like he would come in my room and have a good time. Like he'd be in there like excited about what we were doing, kind of all of that. But he retired. And so now it's like my appraiser is a former like special needs facilitator or something like that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I can tell the difference in their responses to what I'm doing in my room. Like even though I'm a more what they call, I guess, veteran teacher. So I don't get like I didn't get the full observations, anymore. I get mostly like the walkthroughs, but it's still like they're looking for something and they feel like they don't see it. And I'm like, but this is something that we do every day on a daily basis. And if you're not coming in like at the beginning of the process, then it's not going to look like what it looks like in other like core classrooms, if that makes sense. So if we're in the middle of creating, it's gonna look different. But he's not experienced in that, so he doesn't know. You know what I mean? So like, um, yeah. So I'm gonna get off my
So are
soapbox
you
there.
able to
No,
talk
no,
to the
no.
admin? Because like I'm not a traditional classroom either. I am an electives teacher. I've always taught electives. So that was used to be a struggle or a concern, not a struggle, but a concern of mine. But when I would meet with content or when we would meet in those PD weeks, we would meet with our appraisers and bring those questions and they would tell us like, hey, we know y'all electives teachers. We know y'all gonna be cutting things. We know y'all gonna be sawing things. We know that kids are not going to necessarily be moving all around because this is not traditional. But what I do expect to see as your appraiser is X, Y, and Z. And when I taught middle school, I had a lab. So it wasn't a lot of space where kids, you weren't gonna walk in there and see them doing no think, pair, share too much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They weren't gonna be in rotations, and I would often sit at my desk all day because I had a program on my computer that allowed me to monitor all my students' computers at one time. If I was to go from computer to computer, I might miss something. So
Go
if they
Guardian.
walk in my room, it looks like maybe I'm not being that much engaged, but a good administrator or a great communicator can let them know, hey, guess what? Or hey, from my room, I have this software on my computer. And one of my admins was like, oh, you know what? I didn't know that. So every time you walk in, you're going to see me sitting down. But that does not mean that I'm not engaged with my students because that software allowed me to have chats with them. I can send them a quick message, say, hey, I see you struggling with this question. What do you
Wow.
have a question on there? Or do you need anything? And it's all coming from my desk. And this is not traditional, but I think it's more about having those conversations with our admin when it comes as far as in our evaluations. I'm not going to let you come in and give me this score. Or if I do get a score I don't like, I'm going to question it.
Right.
Even if it's like you said, those 15 minutes, they're not going to get all the juice from what I'm doing all the time in
Yeah.
15 minutes.
Right.
But understanding that my non-traditional classroom looks like it's likely gonna be in her desk 9 times out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Right.
I'm gonna be sitting here, but that's what it looks like for my elective.
Right.
Like it's
Yeah.
going to look different, like what you said. It's about making sure they understand that. And mine always do. They're like, oh, we know how these classes are. We have electives, and most of them ain't never taught an elective, but they understand that when they're in these rooms, they don't expect them to look those old same ways. And so I guess I never had that problem always because administration always tell us like, hey, we know I'd be so happy to come in this room. I know I'm not gonna hear a sound. Ain't nobody up, ain't nobody moving. It's quiet. I can just think. But I know that's the culture of your classroom as an elective teacher.
Wow.
I probably would also make sure that a copy of my lesson plans are available to anybody who walks in the classroom. Not to put more pressure on your anybody, but lesson plans are tentative, but at the same time, you can put a lot of detail in there as far as when y'all are doing those. Like you say, the turn and talks, maybe not all the time, but they want to see some of those strategies that really make. But I mean, girl, if they're making costumes, I don't know what more these people want from you. Like a costume? I
Yeah.
can barely put an outfit together. The children making costumes. Give Jene all the money, baby. Give her all the CIA checks because this right here is going crazy. But yeah, I definitely would have some lesson plans in hand so that they can see that you're, because I can just imagine that you would be an innovative teacher.
Oh gosh, yes.
And kind of anybody in an elective, because those things are directly tying you to things outside of the classroom.
Right.
Things that's going to cause you to use those things more often. We talk about expressions and equations, and yeah, I can finagle something to a sixth grader, but yeah, if y'all are doing hands-on things, that's going to directly relate to other things that are going on, other industries that's going on in the world. And it's a lot more fun and engaging is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And so yeah, get your lesson plans together, friend, and leave them, leave them
at the door.
Right.
Girl, I'm so serious. Get you a pocket folder, put it to your wall, put your lesson plans in there, and do your job.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions at the bottom, it was, why is it important to get communication out to people on a constant basis? What are y'all thoughts about that one?
Well, I just have to say, you just communicated that perfectly about to Jene about having her lesson plans, because in a lot of ways, Jene, your lesson plan is communicating, especially since your class is not the most like traditional, like what you were saying with your admin. Your ways are going to be different because your class is different. So that is part of your communication. So I thought that was brilliant when Saria said that. It's like, yes, that is you communicating that. But going back to your question, Saria, why is it important to communicate? I hate to keep going back to the tutors, but I'm going to keep going back to the tutors because it's what I know.
Girl, that's your job.
Again, for me, it was always about reminding them about the student. And then also, I had to remember that some of my tutors were current students. And so they hadn't graduated yet. I did hire some students that were working on their masters and had already graduated, but mostly they were current Del Mar students as well. But I would have to communicate to them not only about the students they were tutoring, but about them being students themselves. And are you getting enough to eat? Are you drinking enough water? Are you making enough time for yourself to study so that you can continue to be successful? I was sometimes like their tutor, and reminding them that they needed to take care of themselves first, so that then they could be there to do well in school, because that's really why they're there. But then also, for their job as a tutor. And I think Marie, the way you talked about the way you communicate with students through your, 9 times out of 10, you were sitting, but you were communicating through the chat, I guess, on your, with the program that you use. You're watching them and you're seeing, I guess, their reactions, and you're utilizing those tools to communicate with them. And the student knows that, somebody going in might not know that, like the admin, but the student knew.
I know we're using, has anybody ever heard of Teach Like a Champion, TLAC?
No, I haven't.
So no. Teach Like a Champion is, for all intents and purposes, a book on strategies of how to interact with students. And it starts at our threshold, where we have to, you've seen the videos of teachers giving the children high fives and fist bumps, and that's us.
Oh,
okay. And if we're not at our door thresholding, it's going to be a conversation or an email later on, because the expectation is that before they even step into the classroom, everything is organized to a T, and we start communicating as soon as those students hit the door, and just trying to set the tone. So this question stuck out to me, because you have to constantly, I don't want to say talk to people, but you just want to gauge their temperature. Are y'all understanding the objectives? Does anyone have any question? We're going to take a quick brain break. Just those things to kind of keep students engaged. It has to be on a consistent basis. So, because I want them to know, number one, I care, but we are here to get this education. I want you to learn. My desires for you to learn at a high level. My desires for you, whatever you turn in, is something that you're proud of and that you understand fully the concept. So communication, it has to come from all of these different assortments. I guess that's the way to say it, to get the message across to the kids on a daily basis.
Wow.
I saw here, it says why under communication is a significant mistake. And sometimes when we grade our students, that doesn't help them be better. The feedback is what grows them, the constructive feedback on how they can be better at something. And when we don't communicate, when we have that lack of feedback, that just hinders the student.
Yeah, because they can't improve on any. If you don't tell them, there's nothing for them to improve on. It's just like, okay, good job. I like a lot of creative shows. So like Project Runway, Face Off, all of these different shows. There's even a show called Forge in the Fire where these people make knives, child. I just love it. And so it's on HBO. Y'all, it's really good.
I never heard of it.
And so you always have 3 groups of people. You have the people who are, 2 groups. You have the people who are the highest and the lowest people. And then you have the people who are safe. The people who are safe, they don't get any criticism. If you notice, they say, okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4, y'all, let's say y'all can go to the back. So they go to the back and they start drinking wine, popping bottles and stuff. And then the other people who got the best and the worst scores, they get the constructive criticism. So they get a chance to make themselves better or to know what the judges thought about whatever they created. I think that a lot of times, and even in my classroom too, I'm guilty. I'm missing those kids who they do just enough. They always do good. I don't really have to give them any constructive criticism because they're going to be all right. But everybody needs something to, to listen to grow on.
That's how you improve.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I think like, especially like in my room, we're really big on feedback. That was like a goal. That's always like a yearly goal. But when after the kids perform, I have like a certain form. Like the kids are filling out a form while the performances are happening. So then at the end, it's like, okay, now we're ready to give feedback. So what are some of the grows and some of the glows? So what did they do in their performance that really stood out to you? That was amazing, that you want to figure out how to add to your performance. And so they'll raise their hand, they'll say it. Then I'm like, okay, well, where do they need to grow? Like, what did you not see? Or, where did they mess up? Or, that kind of thing. And you always start out with the positives because these kids be ready to tell the kids where they messed up. And I'm like, no. We're not doing negatives yet. We're going to start with the positives. We're going to focus on the positive. We're going to accentuate the positive first.
Yeah.
So then we do that. And then it's like, then when they tell them the glows, they're like, oh, when you were performing, you had your back to the audience. Or when you did this, I couldn't hear you. You didn't project your voice. Like, that kind of thing. And so the kids know exactly what to go back. Because then after we do that, I'm like, okay, well, now it's time to go back. And it's time for you to recreate. And so you can come back for your final performance and it can be better. So we do that with each performance. And so that's just one of the ways that the children are communicating with each other. And then as far as like, I don't know if they were also meaning like communicating with parents. I don't know if that was a part of what we were supposed to say. But like for overall communication, I use the Remind app for my performances, like kids that are in my shows and stuff like that. I definitely use Remind. And you can like put office hours and stuff like that. So they can't really contact you outside of the time that you want to be contacted.
Yeah.
So,
it sounds like you're always teaching, Jene. Like you're always
child, always.
as
and
a theater person. You are always
look. That's why I'm tired.
I understand.
Child, that's why I was telling y'all I am tired, honey. She is worn out.
Yeah.
Monday, y'all out, right?
Yeah, we are. We're out Monday. But I still got to do Cinderella stuff while I'm sitting here. So, okay.
Yeah. So so we are now at about 9:52. We can continue or we can
It's good. I'm good.
I think we've done great.
Okay.
I think this
I'm going to
has been
stop
amazing.
recording I'm going to stop recording, but we should still be on. Okay. So let's see if I'm doing this right. Okay.